Galactus is one of the most powerful and oldest entities in all the Marvel cosmos, and for good reason. Born from the Big Bang, the Devourer of Worlds must go from planet to planet, consuming their energy in order to survive, and for this he requires what's known as a Herald, a partner imbued with the power cosmic who must find worlds for their master to, well, devour. The classic and most iconic Herald of Galactus was of course known as Norrin Radd, dubbed the Silver Surfer by his master, but there have been just over a dozen other Heralds employed by Galactus before and long after the Surfer broke free of his control. It's a prestigious title to hold after all, and with it comes an immense source of power, as well as a unique story where they either abide by their master's wishes or conspire against him. It's partially why the Heralds are all such fascinating characters. So, I'm Ewan from What Culture, and here's what happened to everyone who became Heralds of Galactus. Number 12, the Fallen One. The original and potentially most villainous of Galactus' heralds is known as the Fallen One. After spending a period of time as Galactus' herald, the Big Purple One soon realizes that the Fallen One isn't all that nice, and is in actual fact a cruel and malevolent being. Galactus then decides to imprison him, only to suffer repeated attacks as a result. In a rare instance of Galactus actually conspiring with his worst enemy, he sends the Fallen One to Thanos so that the Mad Titan can offer a permanent solution. He defeats Galactus' former herald with ease, turning him into his own before eventually sending the Fallen One to his death at the hands of Tenebrous and Aegis in the events of Annihilation. Number 11, Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer was the first herald of Galactus to feature in the pages of Marvel Comics, and undoubtedly the most famous. Since bursting onto the scene in Fantastic Four number 48 in 1966, the Surfer has gone from being Galactus' planet-searching lackey into his own independent hero, traveling the galaxy and confronting the most serious threats in the cosmos. The Surfer became Galactus' herald after convincing the Devourer to spare his home planet of Zen-La, which eventually brought him to Earth. It was there that the Fantastic Four convinced Norrin to rebel against his master, after spending almost 100 years as his herald. Galactus imprisoned the Surfer on Earth in response, where he would become a hero. The Silver Surfer joined forces with the Fantastic Four, and less famously the Defenders too, before eventually piercing the cosmic boundary to rescue another of Galactus' heralds, Frankie Raye, thus ending his banishment on Earth. Radd would get up to all sorts in the years following. He was one of the first to confront Thanos during the Infinity Saga, battled against the Annihilation Wave when it threatened to end the universe, and even briefly reassumed the title of Galactus' herald around the events of Civil War. Number 10, Airwalker. The interesting thing about Airwalker is that he was actually a part of the galaxy-famous Nova Corps and has found himself split between an eclectic mix of comics since his initial appearance in Fantastic Four number 120. Canonically, he is Galactus' next herald after the Silver Surfer is banished to Earth. Walker's devotion to Galactus is unlike the Surfer's in that he's a more than willing ally to the Devourer of Worlds, with his master even coming to consider him as a friend as their partnership persists. Unfortunately, for both Galactus and his friend, Walker is killed while searching for another planet for him to gobble up. Somewhat depressingly though, Airwalker has been engulfed by a cycle of life and death for years on end. He's killed and then rebuilt over and over again, finally meeting a permanent end in 2006's Annihilation. Number 9, Firelord. Firelord is another of the more obscure heralds to have been in the employ of Galactus, and also one who's the least famous of those who possessed flame-based abilities. Another Xandarian to encounter Galactus, Pirius Krill became the Devourer's herald after searching for his friend Gabriel Lan, who had of course been turned into the herald known as Airwalker. After tracing Galactus across the galaxy, Krill demands to know the fate that befell his former comrade. Galactus agrees, so long as Krill assumes the title of Herald, which he reluctantly accepts, the conceit obviously being that the real Lan was long dead by this point. Galactus' partnership with Firelord was actually quite successful though. Together, they defeated Ego the Living Planet, and they even parted ways amicably too. In the years following, Firelord occasionally returned to help the other Heralds of Galactus deal with renegade threats. Number 8, the Destroyer Armor. Given the Destroyer Armor isn't itself a sentient being, readers might find themselves a little shocked to learn that it was, at one point in time, a Herald of Galactus. Only, out of all of them, the Destroyer probably served him the least. Galactus takes control of the being after he's offered it by Thor, where he discovers Counter-Earth and engages in a few melees with Earth's heroes. That's sort of it for the Destroyer though, as Galactus released the armor from his control shortly thereafter. Number 7, Terrax the Tamer. By this point in time, Galactus had discovered a recurring problem with most of his heralds, and it was that they were too sympathetic to the planets they discovered. With this in mind, the Devourer of Worlds endeavors to recruit a being cruel enough to fund the task of dooming entire planets neither here nor there, and so comes across Terrax the Tamer as a result. A malevolent dictator hailing from the planet Landlac, Tyrus finds himself to Galactus by way of the Fantastic Four, who had promised to incapacitate the tyrant in return for Galactus helping them with their own cosmic quandary. The four succeed, and Tyros, now renamed Terrax, is outfitted with the power cosmic. He finds his abilities to alter rock greatly enhanced, is given a suit that can cope with the pressures of space, and even gets to wield a sweet cosmic axe that could both cut and project cosmic energy. The character actually ended up being one of Galactus' most accomplished heralds yet, right up until he decided to betray him, of course. Who would Galactus empower to take down Terrax? The mutant known as Dazzler, of course. Terrax was then thusly imprisoned, and Galactus once again embarked on his task of finding a worthy accomplice to help satiate his appetite. Number 6. Nova. Coming to the second most famous of Galactus' heralds now, with Frankie Raye nearing even the Surfer in terms of synonymy with Marvel's Purple Giant. The original Nova, Raye bargained with Galactus to spare the Earth and, much like the Surfer had done over a century earlier, offered her own services as his new herald in return. Raye had previously dated Johnny Storm and was related to the scientist that created the original android Human Torch during the Second World War. A childhood accident then gifted Raye with similar abilities, which were augmented when Galactus gifted her with the power cosmic. For a while, Raye was actually unperturbed about leading Galactus to inhabited planets for him to feast upon, until a chance encounter with the Silver Surfer convinced her otherwise. Raye then decided to leave Galactus altogether, eventually developing into her own cosmic hero along similar lines to Rad, but not before she partook in one of the great lost tales in Marvel history, the last Galactus story. Number 5. Morg. Morg is one of the more brutal of Galactus' heralds, and one that actually inspired his former heralds enough to unite to take him on. He was a public executioner, but one ostracized by his native planet after performing executions for a conquering force. Galactus decides to make Morg his new herald. And it went about as well as you'd expect, with Morg clashing against the Silver Surfer and leading to a major battle involving several of the Devourer's former heralds. Silver Surfer, Nova, Airwalker, Firelord, and Terrax all band together to take Morg down, only for Nova to die in the ensuing confrontation. The death of Frankie Raye, along with some counsel from the Surfer, leads Galactus to strip Morg of his powers. Terrax then kills him and decides to work for Galactus briefly afterwards. Number 4. Redshift. Continuing the trend of not-so-stable heralds, Redshift came into the employ of Galactus at a time where the Devourer had grown a particular taste for intelligent life. Redshift, seemingly ambivalent to the ethics of such an addiction, led his master to Earth once more, which leads to a fight with Silver Surfer. The ensuing battle eventually leads Redshift to get trapped in a black hole, and to Galactus' seeming demise. His herald, meanwhile, wouldn't return until the events of Annihilation, where he was destroyed as an energy wave engulfed his position. Number 3. Johnny Storm. The second most famous person on this list, Johnny Storm took on the role of herald after Galactus was resurrected. The Devourer of Worlds had discovered a conspiracy to hide suitable planets from his view, and so it fell to Johnny, this time switching powers with his sister, the Invisible Woman, to bear the responsibility as his herald. Sue Storm had previously been tasked with hiding these planets, but in the brief moment where their powers are switched, Galactus pounces, forcing Johnny to use his sister's powers to decloak the hidden worlds. As the saga continues, Johnny attempts to reason with his new master. He dillies and dallies to buy time for a given planet, and while he understands that Galactus is a natural part of the cosmos, he also understands that he was once a human too, who went by the name of Galen. The rest of the four soon come to his rescue, and Johnny, tapping into his newfound abilities, uses the power cosmic to essentially tear Galactus down to his original human form. The four then spend their time trying to essentially rehabilitate the erstwhile Planet Eater, but Galen is all too aware of the fact the power of Galactus is still searching him out, and so resolves to exile himself from Earth for good. Number 2. Stardust. Ultimately, the Four's efforts to bring Galactus back in touch with his humanity all but fail. He regains his powers and thusly recruits a new herald, known as Stardust. Stardust, first name not Ziggy, differs from his other heralds in that she actively pursues and kills all who attempt to flee a planet's destruction, which Galen himself neither condones nor forbids. It's a needless act of cruelty. Stardust's story actually emerged from the pages of Beta Ray Bill, where the Corbinite warrior did battle with the Devourer's newest herald after they attacked New Corbin, the warrior's home planet. Bill confronted Stardust, but the herald opened up a portal to a phantom zone-like dimension filled with the worst figures the universe had to offer. This unleashes a being known as Astaroth, and leads Stardust and Galactus to team up with Bill to defeat them. Stardust's story concludes in Annihilation, where she gives up her own race to satiate the Devourer's appetite in a bid to be accepted once more as their herald, and to win their affections. Number 1. Cosmic Ghost Rider. Introduced by writer Donny Cates and artist Jeff Shaw, Cosmic Ghost Rider features one of the most traumatic backstories in Marvel's recent history, and breaks into the list because, while hailing from an alternate Marvel reality, he has since become a staple of the mainstream Marvel canon. Long before he found himself whisked away to the pastures of the main Marvel canon, Cosmic Ghost Rider actually started out life as Frank Castle. In that reality, Earth TRN 666, Thanos conquered all the known universe, laying waste to Earth in the process. Frank is the sole survivor and decides to make a deal with Mephisto to get his revenge on the Mad Titan, thus inheriting the powers of the Spirit of Vengeance. But things somehow get even better. Left alone for years and with Thanos nowhere in sight, an injured Galactus heads to Earth seeking help against his old rival, unaware everyone's dead. There, he makes Frank his new herald, while the two engage in a battle with Thanos' hordes for centuries thereafter. Galactus is killed, and Frank then becomes Thanos' herald in return, where he takes custody of the Time Gem. Castle uses said gem to travel to the past 616 continuity, where he became a part of the Dark Guardians. He's currently about to put the Avengers through hell with the other riders in tow, but it would be an idea to keep an eye on him going forward. He's too great to ignore, and absolutely one of the coolest heralds Galactus has ever had.